talk a little about like just, our per unit maintenance costs, us meaning Chicago, is, skyrocketed way more than, New York City or other comparable cities. Just talk about just how poorly run this was and pull out some of those stats, because it's amazingly bad.
Yeah. So, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, it was not poorly run. They had, managers that many of them had military experience. They're coming out of an army experience. They're very rigid. They're enforcing these rules, and tenants are sometimes not happy. You used to get fined if your kid threw a ball at a wall, $5, which was a lot of money when, your rent's $25 or, $50 in the 40s and 50s. And that's, rents were low, and, a typical rent might be $80 in 1951. Right. So, yeah, it's a pretty well managed operation, and then that's going to fall apart as the money dries up. So I got to talk about the subsidy structure a bit. Can I talk about that now?
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So the deal, I'm going to simplify the deal quite a bit, but in general, the deal was the federal government said, we will pay 90% of the costs to build, 90% of the capital costs. There was a loan involved. It was basically the government guaranteed to pay off the loan. We'll pay 90% of the capital costs. The city's got to come up with 10%. The city could come up with that by giving away streets and valuing it in a certain way to say, yeah, you're going to take over these 5 blocks. We'll give you the streets in the middle, and that's a major part of it. Then the housing authority was expected to maintain the buildings out of rents from the tenants. And again, that rent was set as a percentage of the family income. So as the buildings get poorer, you're getting less income, right? So yeah, you have to find working class tenants to fill it if you want to raise your income levels, but your mission is to house low income people, and the federal government's telling you got to house low income people. So now you're stuck. So in 1971, the idea was that, well, obviously this can't work. We're going to come up with a subsidy, a direct check from the federal government to help maintain these properties. It just never worked. They couldn't agree on formulas. The federal feds would say, well, your costs are too high because you're not well run, so we're not going to give you as much subsidy. Well, that kind of stick didn't work. The only place that really works is New York City, which is an interesting outlier, and we can talk about New York City. But every other city, this doesn't work. So there's this subsidy problem where, now you're also expected to have a reserve out of this. And any property owner who's renting knows that, hey, the roof's going to need, every 15, 20 years, you're going to need a new roof, right? So they dug into their reserves. Early on, they had good reserves, but as the the tenants got poorer, they dipped into their reserves. So now they're 20 years into it. The building's built in 51, it's 71, they need a new roof. They got no money. The feds send them a check, but it's not big enough. And the other part is so that's part one. And then on top of that, part two is so inefficient. You're right. Because this is a large bureaucracy managing 30,000 apartments, heavily unionized workforce. Now, I'm not anti-union on this, but there were rules. The rules were the problem, not the pay. The rules were like an electrician has to plug in a refrigerator. Can't have the general janitor can't plug in the refrigerator. Electrician at one point had to replace the light bulbs. Like, these are things that you don't need a high cost person, an electrician, to do. Change the washer in the faucet. Had to have a plumber. So now that kind of, not mismanagement, but structurally expensive management is then going to help sink the place too, because not only do you not have enough money, but your costs are high. And you're fixing things like elevators, which are really expensive to fix. And your kids are running around breaking windows because that's what kids do, man. How many windows did I break playing ball? And you now have a high cost environment. And it just starts to spiral downwards. And that spiral, I'm sure, is one that anybody in real estate understands.